Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Aya Om podcast. This is a conversation episode, and I have with here my brother, Vern Petty. And Vern is someone I've wanted to have on the podcast for quite some time, so I'm really happy that this is happening. I'm glad it aligned for us both to be here tonight. We're recording this on Zoom, and I would like to share about Vern as I've known him for a few years, and people wanted us to meet before we had met because they're like, these guys are definitely going to get along. And they were right. We ended up leading a number of men's retreats together, some workshops, and we're continuing to do so. We're both individuals who have devoted ourselves to the spiritual path as well as the business path. Vern is a counselor, but we also share the field of coaching together, breathwork together, ecstatic dance together, many ceremonies together. I see a very fruitful future for both of us as friends, as brothers. So it's an honor to have you on the podcast. Anything else you'd like to share about yourself? You do a lot of really good work.
Thank you for having me. And no, I just got brought back though to the moment we met. It was pretty hilarious. Again, I knew who you were. People had mentioned you and we'd connect so well. And I was doing my first authentic movement workshop. And it was actually at a festival as well. And you were there. And I remember you were by far the most ridiculous human in that pile of people. And I was just laughing and trying to stay focused on what I was doing and also being like, who is this man? He is going off. And then I ended up beside you in a deep squat, naked in the river. And we got to finally connect and meet, and what an epic way. And now we've facilitated many events, many retreats and shared many other naked cold dips in the Lillooet River. So it's a beautiful opening to our friendship and to the containers and ridiculousness and safety and healing that we've been able to create together. It's been an honor. Grateful to be here to chat with you.
I guess it really set the tone of the bromance. It was ridiculousness at first sight, and it continues to be. And with that cadence of ridiculousness and holding ceremony together, which I feel has been really something I find cherishable growing up in a Christian home and having a way of practicing religion that didn't necessarily always have that cadence between playfulness and, I don't want to say spiritualness is seriousness, but the devotional aspect and the reverence can bring a tone in there, and you really embody those polarities really well as polarity work in masculine and feminine. And you're someone I look up to in the men's work field. You have your, we call it a business, an organization of Expansive Man.
Business, organization, entity, brotherhood, whatever you want to call it. They all kind of work.
Can you give an introduction to what the vision is with your work there and what kinds of things that you're currently doing with that? And then we can go into men's work, because I know it's a really beautiful type of work that I feel is on the rise. I don't really have the numbers to support that, but I find more and more men being attracted to it, and more groups and organizations, at least coming into my field awareness. Maybe if it's not too long to also add why you got into men's work, why you are called to do this kind of work too.
Yeah, absolutely. To first reflect on the bit of the polarity of the joy of this silliness with spirituality is like, I appreciate that reflection of me, because that is something I really want to embody and something I've been afraid of at times. I integrated a lot of my therapeutic work on myself, a lot of my own healing through partying and through learning to be free on a snowboard. And it took me a moment to actually embody all of myself, embody the polarity of the the joy and not hide that from the therapist, not hide the therapist from the partiers and whatnot. And that's partly why I named the brotherhood and this business Expansive Man, because that to me is the way through, is breaking down these walls and stepping into the expansiveness that is being human. Like, it's all of it. And I think through religion, I was raised Mennonite Christian, and it's very serious. And I really rebelled against it a lot, and actually rebelled against like religion in general. I didn't even know of difference of spirituality and whatnot, and disconnected from my connection to God because of that seriousness. And I couldn't, like, to me, life, like purpose, as especially as a kid, was to be joyful, was to be happy. And these elders here are not reflecting that, so I'm out. And that is, yeah, something I really want to bring forward in this men's work world, that I agree is like, it's popping off a bit, which seems to happen with everything I get into. I didn't even know life coaches really existed. And I found out about it and I became one. And it felt like the moment I did, which is also the algorithm and just being in the world and whatnot. But it became a very commonly known business. And it's beautiful because for everyone getting into it, there's people receiving that service through it. And hopefully facilitators that are in integrity and being responsible to do their own work, as we know we need to. Yeah, I started men's work through finding out about Sacred Sons through my brother Eddie Martin Graham, and found out about it through him. And then my brother Hani started running a men's group. I dipped my toe in. That was a good experience. And then I joined Eddie's group, the Brothers of Light, and was a part of that and often in some level of leadership through it. And then I got trained with Sacred Sons and did some more online training as well, and steeped myself in a bunch of different organizations' retreats to get a feel for it, get more reflections, really see how I wanted to share it. And then I shared a few 8-week programs. And then, yeah, 1 year ago, created Expansive Man, which has been based more around in-person, one-off big experiences. So it's either a full day, 2 days, 4 days, and really diving in to what we can do when we come together as men, with the intentions of setting the container for safety, setting the structure for safety, for us to show up in authenticity. And in that is where the healing can come, through the walls just crumbling all around, as men find their comfort in being themselves and are willing to be vulnerable enough to share all the pain and all the things that they're holding back from everyone, often including themselves. And really, that's draining. That's a weight that's sucking the life from them. And my intentions with Expansive Man are very much to create that space so we can all liberate ourselves of those inner blockages, so that we can be free within, and then show up in service outside in the world to help others find that same liberation, so that it is a ripple of impact flowing out into the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such beautiful work, and I feel like it's so popular right now because it is effective in addressing things that can't really be addressed in any other container than when you're surrounded by men. There's a certain energy there. Right? It's the container. It's a bunch of men, a bunch of mirrors when women aren't around, there's a whole different energy that develops.
Mhm.
And by the way, I'm Mennonite too. Got
Oh,
that, real cooking? Oh,
I
sidetrack us, but
don't. That's a whole nother journey. We'll
I
jam
don't
on
want
that
to lose
later.
them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the container of just men, like we all have fathers, and how foundational of a psychological piece for our development is our relationship with that father. And I don't know anyone who doesn't have some degree of work to do, even if you had the best father in the world. So a
Mhm.
container of men enables a container that you can be triggered, or you can see reflections of your father and other men, as well as brothers, of course. And I have found for myself, not growing up with any brothers and not having any close brotherhood for many years in my life, that it was something that I never knew I needed until I had it. And that's what I offer to many men who are unfamiliar with it and don't know why men would desire to go into that. And maybe they might see it as like counseling, like needing to do the work because something's wrong,
Mm.
needing something to fix. And of course, you mentioned healing, and that is part of the work, but it's in many ways also an optimization container. I
Yeah.
think one of
It's
the phrases
elevating.
exactly. I think one of the phrases that we use quite a bit at the first retreat was iron sharpens iron, in the way in which two men in competition with one another in a healthy way is one of the best ways that men grow. It's what we've been doing for many, many, many years. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, curious for you actually. Like, I'd love to hear your reflection of how has men's work impacted your life from you being a part of it, especially being a man who didn't grow up with brothers.
Would you count martial arts as men's work? Not men's work proper, but
I'd
that would.
say totally, like, and in a way, right? That's part of what we do. So it's also, I'd say that's part of, yeah, martial arts is partly men's work, absolutely.
That's where I went to first, because I think that was one of the containers that I went to after high school, because I did do sports in high school, but there was a little bit of a lull between being with a bunch of men because I went off to school, and I just didn't have a container where it was all men. And then I went back into martial arts, and that sense of collective brotherhood of self betterment allowed me to step into my masculinity, that
Mm,
directive force of purpose. And when I got into that environment, it also showed me a lot of my ego and my comparison with these other men that wasn't activated in a container that wasn't that martial arts container, or at least I didn't see it to the degree I did when there's a bunch of men competing. And that allowed me to see myself in that way. One of the biggest takeaways I got when I first started practicing martial arts was I didn't realize that I walked around with a low level of fear, that if any fight or altercation were to break out, that I didn't know what to do
yeah.
until I figured out what to do. And I realized that most men, I would say, projecting that out, have that a low level of fear that if something did
Hmm.
happen, they wouldn't know. And it's like a whole new level of confidence I was able to walk around with, that if something did happen, don't know if I would actually be able to handle it, depending at whatever level, because I don't know what's out there. I've never been in those altercations. But it shifted my mind into more of a readiness and a capacity to regulate and be prepared in that way, which for me is a way that I can show up in my masculine as a protector. So it activated that piece in me. And that's why I would call that men's work in that way, although it's not a formal container for doing that kind of self development. I feel like it has that beneficial effect for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to that, that's why we do ritual combat. And I remember had a few comments after we shared the video from our first retreat of like, oh, is this just a bunch of dudes fighting each other? It's like, no, that's just the flashy stuff, and that's more of what got filmed. But the
Mm-hmm.
purpose behind that to share to people listening is that, yeah, it's studies have been done on it that until you know what it's like to fight someone else, if ever there is a moment where there's a possibility of an altercation and you in your mind can make that possibility be there at any point, which is like you're saying, like you're walking around, and even if you're just in the presence of another dude that you maybe don't really know well and you're not safe with, there's a part of you that has fear because you don't know what will happen if a fight breaks out because you've never been in one. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an issue within ourselves that we get to shift and find a deep level of confidence and safety. Because even if we go into that ritual combat and we get punched in the face a couple times and we lose, but we recognize we don't die, and we recognize we can get back up, we can face him again, we can stand on our own 2 feet, the fear moves because we now know what it's like. And often there's a lot of therapeutic benefits as well, because the fight response is a part of it's such a it's the reptile brain, such a core part of humans is fight or flight. And so many people have never actually experienced their fight. And when you get to experience that, it's now switched on in your body. And you actually really want that, because you don't want to get cornered in an alleyway with your partner or whatever, and some guy attacks you and you freeze or you run, even though there's nowhere to run, because you're afraid of your own fight response. And this is how we actually work at turning that on. So it's not only active, but you actually won't dissociate and go out of your window of tolerance when you're in it. You can actually be calm in that fight because you know what it's like to get punched, you know what it's like to throw a punch, and you know what it's like to be on the ground. So yeah, martial arts is absolutely men's work. And that's beautiful. It gave you not only the opportunity to like move that fear, but to also find that your own judgments and your own competition and your own, it sounds like, fire of living a more ambitious and purposeful life too.
Mm-hmm. And it's like a fundamental shift there between the discomfort that can come with fighting and getting a little bit pummeled, and the switch there is that it's pleasurable and that it's actually something to seek. It's like how we can shift working out from being a discomforting experience to actually being very pleasurable. And that fundamental shift can happen on the mat, wrestling with other men, but that transition as a ripple into areas of business, into areas of relationship,
Mm.
because it's a very fundamental mechanism of orientation towards pleasure and away from pain. And that's one of the most fundamental things that the Buddha taught. And it's very fundamental to our conditioning. And the overriding of that gives that primordial energy, and it activates it in a way where we can use it for our conscious will. Same with, I find the activation of the inner beast that we all have, that animal you're talking about with the fight or flight. It's like we all got a cage beast in there. Most people don't know it, thankfully, because it's never had to come out. But in certain circumstances, it can come out. Doesn't mean we have to actually get to the point where we're in survival, but just that trigger in the brain. And when we know our beast well, we can shine a light there. And that process allows for confidence in ourselves, that we can meet ourselves in those places and know that the perceived dragons within us are actually a power within us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that it? Yeah. It is powerful. And when we, and it's And it's knowing that beast so that beast doesn't take over, but we can actually channel the energy of the beast. And and that's what we do. And that's why we get all the way out into the forest to do that work, because it's creating the container, it's creating the spaciousness for us to get back to our primal power that we all have within. I love what you said about pleasure as well. One thing I've been really focusing on lately is aligning my schedule and my day to falling in love with the process. If I look at my day laid out and I'm like, oh wow, this is a lot, and maybe I could do it, maybe I could be ambitious, but I can see that it's going to likely wear on me so much because I have so many calls or whatever it is, and I probably won't enjoy it as much. I'm going to make adjustments and make little breaks or make primers, put them in there to keep recalibrating me to pleasure. And it's such a powerful teacher of that, because that is the ultimate challenge, is fighting, really. Like you're simulating something that can go to the death. And when you can find the play in that, it makes it easier to find the play in all other aspects of life and use that as the anchor. It's like, oh, my anchor is I'm going to play. Like my work is play. And if it's not play, I'm out of alignment somewhere. I've like pushed it too far, or I'm not in the right headspace. And having something like that, especially with challenge, right now with my injury, I can't do that. But even just having a practice of play in the day that isn't just something super easy, like you're trying to learn something new or you're in competition, can be such a beautiful practice for making your life, especially the hard parts, playful. Because we do better, we perform better, and we learn better, and we simply enjoy life when we're playing.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Can I ask you how you schedule your days? Do you have a very specific protocol as how you organize everything?
Yeah, so the morning routine is a very dialed in thing. So that's just, I have a habit stack that goes wake up, turn alarm off, get in cold shower, brush teeth, go upstairs, do morning breath work, and then have my salts, lemon and apple cider vinegar water. And then from there, things can shift. And it's kind of, yeah. But what what keeps me honed in is having most things in my Google Calendar, having that all lined out, but then also writing in a physical notebook. I have this epic thing that my roommate got me on. It's called Passion Planner, and just writing out my work, my like to-do lists with all the priorities, as well as where I'm scheduling them in. But that way, if I know if something comes up and I'm like, oh shit, this is going to take twice as long, I can just go, okay, what's the priority? Okay, I'm going to adjust the schedule then for the priority, so that I'm never getting to the end of the day of like, oh, I did a bunch of things, but my number one task didn't get done. So that's how I schedule my life.
Beautiful. And what about your more long-term goals? How do you stay on track for those? Are they just included in your day-to-day, or do you do like semi-quarterly check-ins with that?
Yeah, so I'm doing it more and more and more. Tracking has become, I'm really recognizing that tracking is one of the greatest skills of top performers, and organization has been a deep focus of mine since I moved into this new home, got rid of over half my stuff. I even changed the way I folded my pants the other day. I have a sister that's an incredible minimalist. I got her to come over and check out my setup, and she was like, "Wow, everything's amazing, but can I show you how to fold pants differently?" Like, hell yeah. My pants are folded in a way now that they won't wrinkle because they're softly folded, and I can see every single pair at once. And like 20 pairs fit in one drawer. It's crazy. Dude, I'll organize your pants next time I'm over.
Please do.
But having a weekly check-in, so I actually schedule it in to this planner that I have a weekly rest period where I have nothing scheduled other than doing a look back at my week. I used Notion for organization. I have this thing called the system, and it's actually like it expands on the week. It's a structure for the weekly check-in. And then, yeah, I have all of my yearly goals written out and my 5-year goals written out. So I'm making sure I'm looking back at those, being like, okay, is the progress still being made towards these goals? Do I need to adjust anything? And then I set up my next week and I make sure that all the things I need to do to continue on my way there are scheduled. And then after that, I will schedule more of the player, the look at the extra things I want to do. Like, oh, I want to do a podcast with Zach. That's like one of the priorities. That's a random thing. Let's see if where can I fit that in this week, for example.
Mm-hmm. And do you use the SMART goal structure, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time sensitive? Because I think I heard you made a video on that, and I'm asking for a very specific reason.
Okay, I do. And partly I do because my shit used to not be measurable. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm somebody who just like works off of energy. I'm like, my energy tends to like go up and down. I'm just going, as long as I'm doing the things and I'm focused, I'm on track, doesn't need to be measurable. But then I'd look back over 3 months and I'd be like, okay, well, did I do the things? And often my goals weren't really measurable. I wasn't tracking them. I'm doing so much at once. I was like, well, I know I've done a lot. I feel better, but I don't know exactly what's working really well and what's not working as well. And it also, like, something I'm healing from and might always be healing from is not enoughness. And when you can show yourself, when you have measurable evidence of of how you've done, you are not only giving, it's like the ultimate place to like give yourself that pat on the back, but you're building, like Goggins says, you're building that undeniable stack of evidence of your power. And when you do that and you really see that, it builds inner trust that allows you to manifest even bigger things and become more ambitious. So I actually think it's really important for not only making the goals actually happen, but up leveling who you are through having clarity around what you've done.
Yeah, that's really good. It's a function of integrity to be able to follow through with that. One of my teachers says that's a very much to do with our code of honor, right? If we can't prove to ourselves that we're willing to follow through with what we say, we have no capacity to have the confidence to dream the bigger dreams. One of the reasons why I asked about the SMART goal structure is because I've worked with it and I've thrown it out recently in terms of setting specific times and even going into realistic. This isn't for all my goals. I structure a lot of my life, and I would say I'm a high achiever in many of the things that I do. It's a relative.
What, you think you're a high achiever? What? Kidding.
So
for those that haven't figured it out yet, this may be one of the most high achievers that I have ever met, at least. Anyways, go on.
So I don't know if this would necessarily work for everyone, but the way I understand it, I feel like there's a capacity for us to all work in this way. But I thought it was interesting because I did see your video on the SMART goal and I know how big it is. And I would say how important it is in some sense. But when I started throwing away the timetable on it, for me, I found this to be so much more effective. And how I structure it now is I have quite a few goals. Like for this year, I have 3 different courses. I'm planning my own school. I like to finish up the workbook for that as well as the coaching workbook. 2 courses and number of trips and then a few different retreats and a lot of things, right? But I don't
Like I
really
said,
care.
ladies and gentlemen, high achiever.
I don't really care if any of them actually finish in this year.
Mm,
What my thing is, each day I wake up and I do what is most exciting, and I
mm.
follow that pathway of what is the inspired action. Now, it doesn't work for everyone because I feel like if everyone
Yeah,
just did what is most exciting, they would misinterpret that to mean what is most immediately pleasurable and gratifying. And for many people, they would choose the easier things, and there would be maybe a short sightedness in there.
yeah.
But what most excites me is the most exciting ones, which right now is building a school. And the more that I'm in that mode of, oh, I'm going to be a teacher, I'm stepping into an archetype that I embody, which up levels how I see the world because I'm looking at it from the place of being someone who knows something, and that's a higher standard than being a beginner. And of course, you're a beginner when you think you know anything. And did I say that right? In order to be someone who knows someone, you have to also humble yourself to be a beginner at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself lost.
Yeah.
But losing that kind of time constraint allowed me to open up myself more to what is most authentic and coming alive in me. One of
Hmm.
the reasons why this might be specific to me is because I'm a reflector in the human design, and
Mm.
the understanding of the underlying energetics there, or each day I move through different gates which shift my energetic system. So I don't so much show up consistently in one direction as many people do. And with that type, I can take on many different creative endeavors and do them on different days, but I have to choose the right ones on the right day. So if I have a
Yeah.
very specific goal and I force myself into it, I can energetically be unaligned with it. So the most fruitful place for me to be in is what's most energetically aligned. And I don't know that till I wake up that day and check in. That makes
Totally.
sense?
Yeah. So that makes so much sense why it would work for you, especially because you are so disciplined and you've had like from, I imagine now when you might not even consider it like boundaries, but you have so many boundaries and you created them around what you do and what you eat and the energy that you consume and that you put out into the world. So your discipline around dopamine is going to be completely different from the average human. And so that's one part of it. Because, yeah, for you, when you think of what's most exciting, you don't have all these other, I imagine, worked through the distractions, all the vices that each vice will point to a part of us that's not fully integrated, which is why the greatest excitement isn't the mission. And
Mm,
you've done that work. But before we've done that work, the timeliness forces us to schedule it in so that it actually, so that it puts pressure on people to actually do it. Because a lot of people without any sort of pressure won't do anything. And putting that pressure, that whether that's with from accountability partner, from your boss, from society, because you got to make money and pay rent, from the like there's a lot of pressure to look good, to make money, to feel good, all the things, and those actually result in needing to do things in a timely manner to get anything done. And that's actually a really good thing. And it's learning how to use that timeliness to pressure ourselves in a good way, where it's fun and it helps us focus. Now, eventually, as we build momentum and learn to fall in love with our number one priorities, which are, yeah, usually the relationships, the health, the fitness, we fall in love with it. All the vices just fall away. And that's one thing I really invite people to recognize at the start of their personal growth journey is it just keeps getting easier in a lot of ways because you build tools, but you also build the muscle. Like working out is the hardest. Usually not day one. You have some like level of gusto. It's day two when you're already sore. You're coming back. You're like, holy shit, there's no results, obviously. And that's the hardest point. But once you've worked out for 3 months, you love it. Like I love it. Won't speak for you. I fucking love going to the gym. That is a great part of my day. It's exciting. I love coaching. I love writing session notes, even. I love this whole process. I'm learning to love things like making graphics for events and finding the love of that because I built that confidence. I built that unconscious competence with these things. But until we're there, I think the timely is really important. Now, and another reason it doesn't affect you is you don't have a boss or a partner that is needing you to meet deadlines. And if you did, it does matter when, because like, for example, if you're like, oh, it doesn't matter to me exactly when these get out, it'd be nice to. But if you have a contract riding on that course getting out, even though you don't want to be filming that course nearly as much as the other things because it's not in your natural energy, you'd kind of be forced to. So you've actually really built and architected a life that really fits your energy, which is beautiful. And that's incredible. And the last thing I want to offer though is for people who resonate with Zach here of like, oh, my energy really fluctuates. I want to do different things on different days. I'm with you as well. I've also architected a life where I can do that for the most part. But what I offer clients who don't like the idea of just creating their schedule, having it like a hard set, I'll have different work like periods. So it's like they'll have a self-care period, but it's not just do anything during that time. They have a list of things that they can do. And and so that in that time isn't like watching YouTube, something that will give a lot of dopamine, that would probably be the natural form of excitement, but they know they need more rest. And then they'll have the work period, and the work will have, there'll be a list for that, for creating whatever it is, creating content, booking clients, making sales, whatever the job is. And then there's like relationship time. And by tuning in on the day of, and they know how many blocks they need of each thing in a week to be in alignment, they can tune into what they need, but they put these blocks in that still have the boundaries of, it's not like I'm only going to do this one thing, and you get choice, and it's like, oh, I can do one of these 5 things, and they'll require different energies, but they're all for work. So they'll still get me towards that same goal in a timely manner, but it allows a little bit of flexibility as to the actual action so that we can align it with the energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes great sense.
Yeah.
What I'm receiving here is the beauty of coaching and how individual and unique we are, multidimensionally, energetically, how we work and show up, and how a good coach can identify those patterns. Like you can witness me and understand a little bit about how I operate, and you can offer advice that gives me a reflection that I can't see within myself. And a good coach can help us to offer themselves as a living example. This is one of the reasons why I love the fields of work that we're in, whether it's men's work, coaching, breath work. We have to be living examples, and it's through our personal growth and our evolution that we maintain our integrity within ourselves, that we can show up in this way. But it's also the give and receive of working with anyone. Like we were chatting before this, just going back and forth with you is so rewarding because you're embodied in what you do in a developed and devoted way. And it's much different than me. But as a living example, it offers a light, and it even offers me a reflection in your difference of who I am. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is the way I am because of this. And I didn't clue into all those pieces about, oh, I can do this because XYZ. And I
Mm.
really liked how you touched on what I term in my coaching system one love. And I call it the organizing principle of our life is our greatest love. This is what I mean when I say excitement. It's related to our purpose, it's related to our dharma. And when that is the organizing principle of our life, it organizes all the other behaviors, the other ways that we get
Mm.
dopamine, which could be the distractions if they take over our life. But when we have the organizing principle, how much time we spend on YouTube and with our partner and all those other things has a structure to it and a flow to it. Yeah, that's really
Mm-hmm.
important. Really important.
A flow, it has priorities, it has
Yeah.
boundaries as well. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Like spend that time every week to rest, to play, to do the things that especially I I'm learning this. This is a deep lesson I've learned over the last 2 years is taking time to actually, yeah, watch TV or or just be silly, play with the cat, whatever it is that is taking my mind away from all the things I'm doing. And that's actually, for me personally, not like a meditative practice of the more classic sense. And it's
Mhm.
giving my like inner child that just wants to not have anything timed out or not be trying to focus on anything in particular that time to rest, but I have boundaries on that. So it's like I give myself so much time, or maybe it's based around energy. As soon as that cup is full or that time is up, we're back to the path, whatever that is. And it all follows, finds a natural flow in when we prioritize our values and prioritize that mission and what we're going for in life. Yeah, something yeah, to speak on coaching and how valuable it is when a coach is person centered, and that's something that isn't a guarantee in coaching. In therapy it almost is now, which is great. A therapist only has an agenda towards like emotional expression and the client being able to yeah, it's self-discover essentially. And with coaches, sometimes coaches are really trying to drive someone towards something. And my intention in my coaching is to be a light of someone who is fully embodying and doing the best I can to live my best life, to live my own unique design, to live my own unique gifts, to share those so fully with the world, to love so fully, and it gives that permission slip for them to do the same, but in their own unique way. And so much of what I do is just helping people find the tools and the systems that work for them. It's like, not do not copy my life. I have designed my life meticulously for my specific being. We're going to co-create your what's going to work for you and work for your unique healing, for your unique trauma, for your unique gifts and ambitions so you can live your ultimate life.
Mhm. Which is why most coaching systems get at our underlying beliefs and value systems, because that's who we are. We may think we're our actions, but our actions are coming from deeper subconscious patterns, which are the belief systems and the value structures. And helping a person to identify those gives the coach an idea of who they are at that fundamental level. And then it offers a very unique way of offering them space to show up more and more as that, because we inherit a lot of value systems, of course, through our conditioning, and they may not be most representative of who we feel we are, our true core essence of how we show up authentically. So yeah, authentically.
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 Yeah, man. And that's it. It's like recognizing the core beliefs, where they come from, like what is the truth of their where those programs originated from, and are those in alignment. And what I love about what you do, what I do, what Damien does, like men who are can coach and also work with the emotions, with the energy of the past somatically, is like, if this isn't in alignment, let's clear it. Let's go in there and actually give this your energetic body the opportunity to open and feel what needs to be felt, to create the space for the new energy, for the new story that you want to bring in. And through creating the space for them to really discover who they are today, who they want to be, who they want to be the embody, who they want to embody, what is their vision, and bringing that backwards to the core beliefs, winding it down to the basics. You can create a new core belief and nurture that. And it starts as a seed, but through aligning, one of the things people I think really struggle with is like, oh, like I have to just tell myself this new story all the time, like write on my fridge, do affirmations. I'm like, that's the slow way. The real way is align your actions and your feelings when you're in those actions to this new seed, and it will blossom so much faster. And the old one won't have any, if you don't put actions towards it, even if it's a big plant, even if it's a tree with no water will still die. It will still wither away. A tree will take longer than a bush, but it will still die. And we can completely change the belief patterns that we're running on to be aligned with who we are when we align our actions to who we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Our belief systems, like the stories we live by, have a momentum behind them. And I once thought about it. I was like, how many repetitions does it take to integrate a new story? And I was like, well, there's no set number. There's just a certain amount of energy behind the old story and the empowerment of the new story. If you can put enough energy behind that, you can shift in a single moment. And we do that. We show that to the world by our action, by our embodiment of that, by our trust with that. And as you were talking, I was seeing a vision of some of the work that you did in the men's retreats that we've done to help bring people through very embodied actions to complete pieces of their past. Would you mind sharing a little bit about some of the work that you facilitate?
Yeah, in that regard, so we do in men's work, we have the opportunity to process people and do what we'd call in my like counseling school. I went through a TRS, a therapeutic release session, where we're actually recreating a situation. And sometimes we're not recreating the situation, we're just allowing the man to get really attuned into the feeling. But to give an example of where, yeah, we're really recreating it, for example, say a man was bullied. This is quite a classic one I've ran many, 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 many times. Is say a man was bullied as a kid by a lot of people, and he always felt very small. We'll get him to actually, we'll get all the men to come on one side and make this essentially crowd. And usually myself or one of the leaders will be at the front, and we'll start calling them names, and we'll talk about the story first. We'll get specific on like, what names were you called, what really hurts. We're actually trying to trigger that hurt, because the same way in life, when we get these beautiful triggers, it's an opportunity to go through it. It's like we're actually going to intentionally trigger you and give you not only the tools to feel that, we're going to give you the opportunity to shift how you showed up in that. So often, especially with bullying, we never got to say our piece, or we never got to fight back. We never got to say what we really felt. And we still are playing these stories out. I know I did this for years after I left school, playing stories out around these kids that I still had all this resentment with. And so we will yell, we'll call them names, all the things, and it's incredible. Usually it's like the one the one phrase that they told us about, once that one gets sparked, you just see their vein twitch, and it's like, oh, they're there, they're 12 again. And you keep going, and all the emotion builds, and they're right back in the spot, but they have the tools to breathe with it. They feel it, they let it come up, and then we provide the space for them to, if they need to yell and say what they need to say, they do that. Oftentimes it's pushing, and they need to push back and feel their strength and feel that beast, that controlled beast, fight back and know that they actually could do that. And we'll have all the men pushing against them, but we let them push through. And it feels amazing. You really feel like you're pressing against a crowd of people, and we don't make it easy. We'll gas you out, but at the very end, you will push through and feel that release. And often through that, there's a lot, in this specific example, there's often a lot of grief around the loss of innocence. There can be so many other things under that. And we get to create that opportunity for the transmutation of that fear, of that anger, of that grief, that shame. And then we co-regulate with that man afterwards. And this is one of the biggest parts too, is when you work with just a therapist, which is, it's also amazing, but you don't get this group experience where you're having a group see you showing up in this new way, and this group supporting you after as well in the integration. So at the end, we'll usually hoist a man into the air and love him up with affirmations, or we'll do a group hug and breathe together, especially if a man is still really deeply in the dysregulation. We'll all settle that energy together. I'll be able to find his deep inner safety and peace, and then look around and see all the eyes of these loving brothers, and like have that felt experience of deep belonging and acceptance for who he is and being heard. And in that moment, it's not like that whole traumatic piece vanishes and all the stories with it go, but because there's so much energy there, there's so many eyes, there's so many reflections of this new story. You are really, it's not just a seed, you are like planting a plant in this garden, and you're really chopping out a huge hunk of that other one. And it's creating accountability, because all these men now see you in this new way, in the thriver. You are no longer playing the victim. And that being seen really helps people stay disciplined to showing up in a new way that moment forward.
Got goosebumps listening to that. It's that momentum of energy, and it's so palpable to everyone there. It's so beautiful to witness people coming into their power in that way, and you articulated it really well. But the science of it is so beautiful, is that we can go back to the exact, in some sense, chemistry of what was happening neurobiologically, and revisit that in the nervous system, and we can repattern that psychotherapeutically with a new meaning, a new energy, and that story can completely shift, as you said. And especially when you have a container, as we do up there, with multiple days of ceremony and work, the amount of momentum behind it, it's such a powerful thing. Yeah, this is something
Yeah.
that, as you're saying, like one-on-one therapy work has a lot of benefit, and it has its own medicine in that way. But this kind of group work has so much value. That embodiment, yeah, is something very special. And I'm not sure how much you've read into the shamanic dramas that used to take place, but a lot of shamanic work in many indigenous cultures was this ritualized drama, and they would go through various different dramas within the community to reach certain endpoints. And I'm not sure if it was anything like this, but I've heard some stories when they would go off to war, the warriors would come back and they'd ritualize the war, but in a dance form. So instead of
Mm,
going into the fight, they would go into joy and ecstasy to complete what they didn't complete there in a good way, in the safety of their
mm,
community, with the support, with the festives and the eating after. And that would
mm,
integrate their experiences out there, but they would have many healings in a similar vein, where it would be a completely ritualized experience. And we do this in psychotherapeutic work, not stuff that I lead, but where individuals will embody somebody's father or partner or someone who's passed on, so that
mhm.
individual can go through that work together with them. And yeah, did you know about that connection with ritualized drama and shamanic work?
No, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's really cool. Another what it was when I got into therapy school, I had no idea I was signing up for an acting class as well, but holy shit, it was one. I have played so many crazy roles that I'm just like, okay, we're doing this. And it's actually healing to play it as well. There's other cultures that when their men would come back from war, they wouldn't get them to reenact, but before they were even allowed in the village, like the village would even like stay in their homes while the warriors came back so they could not see anyone before going straight to the temple. And
Mm,
they'd be fed aphrodisiacs and psychedelics, and then be loved up by goddesses whose role it was to actually hold these men and love them and sexually love them, sensually love them, motherly love them, whatever they specifically needed to be able to process the trauma, so that when they left that temple they were coming back as men of love into their village. And yeah, just another way of how cultures of old knew the importance of releasing, of letting go of what has been created within the body. And it's such a sad thing of how in North America that soldiers are treated and are not given the support. And it's PTSD became a thing of awareness through soldiers and through suicide. And
mm.
yeah, something to something that is thankfully shifting. I wanted to add a little piece to what you said as well before, because this is so important to me. I I did my studies as a counselor and started counseling, but I recognized there was an issue. There was a huge societal issue, and that was I had done the work and had such profound shifts, partly because of the potency of the actual therapy, but the group dynamic that was in that allowed me to to heal and to be through like the genuine connection, not just with someone who has a power dynamic within the relationship. And I realized we don't have that in life. And what we need is, yeah, to have that therapist, to have that coach, but we need people in our life that are willing, that want to see us change into our best selves, that want, that understand this work and want you to be in your power. And so few of us have that because so many of us are projecting our fear of others being in their light because we're afraid of being in our own. And that's why instead of diving into my private practice, I took the time to create Synergy Ecstatic Dance. So I was like, we need a place to dance and be free, that there's no alcohol, there's no drugs. This is actually just about being free and being liberated. And then I created Expansive Man because I was like, I need men when they go to therapy with me to have a place where they can integrate beyond that, where it's not just one-on-one. And now that they're both here, I feel so much more excited in my own private practice, because I also know lots of other communities like the kirtan community, for example, for people to go to, where you can also find this safety, this acceptance, liberation. But I am running two of them that I get to hold the integrity of the space, that you can, all the stuff you're going through that you're bringing to these one-on-one sessions, you can integrate through showing up with a group of people that will genuinely encourage you to to feel everything and to express everything and to step into your power. I think it's so needed in our society. And what I'd encourage people is really check your own friend group, check your family. What are the top 5 people you're spending time with? And do they have your best interest in mind? Are they really encouraging you to go for your goals and go for your dreams? Are they welcoming you to change and shift as you grow?
Yeah, that's
Because
really
if they're
beautiful.
not, yeah, if they're not, that's why are you if you want to grow, if you want to heal, if you want to live a better life, then you might want to consider shifting those friendships or moving to new ones. Yeah, just wanted to share that.
Yeah. Our communities, they help to activate, as the men's group does, as these big shifts, different aspects of our DNA. And I see for my own life, and I would wish this for many others because I know it's possible because I see so many others doing it in the same way. Just as you just as you've spoken to, there's a way to systematize our life that's so reflective of who we are and having connection to communities. And I know we live in different environments around the world, but most people have access to a therapeutic community, a yoga community, a martial arts community. And for me, I remember at a time, some people were like, you got to pick a path. And I was like, my path is going to be to do all of these things in balance. And there's a very unique way of doing that that's organized by my highest principle that we've been talking about.
Mm.
And when we can do that, I feel like there's a balance that is struck that allows us to be in our potential. Because if I don't go to martial arts, I find this whole aspect of my being, this connection to my warrior, that archetypal energy isn't activated, and that affects my business. That affects how I show up in relationship. And learning what's available and moving past what is often an initial resistance, as you've spoken to with when you first start working out. But once that's gone, it will be the pathway of least resistance. And that's because it's activating momentum and energy, and it's a stimulus for our growth. So I see that as the future of our holistic health is not so much a way of going towards medicine as something's wrong, I'll go to the doctor to fix it, but having these preventative systems in place or accelerating systems where we can tap into so many aspects of who we are, because I don't get the same healing from the men's work that I do in other circles. I just can't find it in that special way. And I feel like as a human with conditioning that we're all working through, there's these major points of healing, as I've talked to about like our father and our brothers, that when we do a certain amount of healing on them, it's not that we complete them, but if we haven't done that work, it's hard to have some of these more fundamental relationships, because our relationships with the father figure in our life is our fundamental relationship to the masculine. And unless we deal with that, it's like not dealing with our fundamental relationship with money. It's going to affect every single area of your life until it's dealt with. And it's going to continue to claw at you in conscious and subconscious ways. So I find that so essential. So,
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot of places could go there. One thing I really appreciate your balance of the amount of things you do. And I see some people who in a way I'd say have too many hobbies.
mm,
They don't grow at anything because they're so busy doing everything. I'd
mhm.
say you're somebody that I think does a lot of things, yet is you balance them well and you can grow within all of them and they all support each other. And I really resonate with that path if I'm not just trying to become the best therapist or just trying to get good at this or grow this one business. It's like having this foundation, this powerful foundation, because I have so many pillars and I'm looking at all of them. I'm making sure I'm tending to my warrior pillar, my king, my magician, my lover. I'm tending to my finances. I'm tending to my family, my relationships, my connection to nature, my connection to rest. All of these things are there, and then they lift this foundation together, and then it's really steady. And then, but it's also, it all just works in tandem, and like you say, it just becomes the way. And event for me, it just feels like there is no other way. Like
Yeah.
the vices, the all the like it's so it's easy to pick integrity now, because at some point it just feels so, it just clicks that this is the way that brings me the most joy. This is the way that I'm being called to live by something greater. This is aligned with my responsibility. And it gives me a lot of, I toy with the word hope, but I think my faith is really is partly based in the 3D plane. At least my faith is partly based in seeing how fast change happens when we get all those pillars in alignment, and we come around other people that are on us, that are building in a similar direction. We just all amp each other up. We can see the weak points on each other and call them out, and not only call them out, but give them the tools to fix that weak point,
Mm-hmm.
accelerate that growth. And that's what men's work is this huge pile of mirrors. It's all these reflections of how we can do life, and in that we find the ways we can do it a lot better, and are supported in doing it in a bigger way. And on the virtue that we're going in the same direction of service towards uh, a harmonious humanity and a harmonious connection with Mother Nature, which I believe we are. I believe that is very much being called forward of us, and that anyone who does a deep level of this inner work finds that connection, that we're going to be able to, just the oh, what's that? The word for that, the exponential growth of that is just incredible, because it's this melting pot of wisdom coming together and filling all the cracks of unknowns, and heating up the fire of believing that we can do it, believing that like we can create real change, and reflecting that we are creating real change, and that through that it will just grow and grow and grow, and we'll figure out the way as it does.
Mm-hmm. Remember that conversation we had? Um, what's that place called? Not the Mystic Mansion. One of the group houses where we're like talking about archetypes, and you were mentioning that it's like, oh yeah, there used to be kings, and they would. That's not the archetype. That's their full embodied experience. They were a king, and then you would have a mystic who was just a mystic. We still have some of those, and we still have kings, of course, but so many people in today's modern world, especially in the West here, we're multidimensional. And in that, there's a recognition of how to live in harmony with these many facets of ourselves. And I think that ordering and balance of that is something that is very unique to us, but there's a way to do it, and a way to do it really beautifully. Like, the reason why I feel like I work so well doing so many things is part of my energetic type, but it's like there's an intelligence there. Like, if you're going to learn 10 languages, don't learn one language a little bit every day. focus on one, learn it really well, and then learn the others and kind of bounce between, there's a certain level of understanding that like clicks over in the brain that we can build the kind of like the framework for learning languages, and then we can learn multiple. So like
Yeah.
I spent 10,000 hours learning breath work, and then I went to yoga, and then I moved to qigong, and then I do them all at once now. But I
Yeah.
spent a period where I obsessed over one and ate, slept, shit. All I did was did it as much as I could to build that in. I don't know how you shit yoga, but I do it. So the complete
with an ohm.
with an old, actually I do Kapalabhati in the toilet, but we're not gonna go into all those routines. So
We can save that one.
there's a real beautiful balance there. And
Yeah.
last thing I want to talk about is the upcoming reclamation retreat. I'd love for you to share a little bit about the intention behind it and what goes on there.
Yeah. So the one, when do you drop these from the time they're recorded?
I'll probably drop it within a week.
Okay. So we'll be just going on the King retreat when this drops, but it's a smaller one. It's going to be a 2-day in Vancouver. If you happen to hear about this and you want to drop in, I'll be on the 10th and 11th. Reach out to me. But more likely, you're listening to this after. And what I'd love to share is about the Lover retreat happening on, it's the May long weekend. So like May 17th to 21st, I believe. The Friday to the Monday, and it's going to be wild. It's going to be deep, and yeah, facilitated by yourself. By, it looks like we don't know the crew for sure, so I actually won't say all the names, locking those confirmations in today. But it's up 4 days in the nature of Mumsy, our elder, Sylvia Shanos' land, and there'll be sweat lodge, there'll be a lot of incredible food, and a 4-day men's container focused on expression and shame. And the lover archetype is the expression of eros, it is the expression of gratitude. It is all of our creativity is in a way flowing through that. And in a way, it's our connection to our feminine as well, our inner feminine. And the shadow of it is the dreamer and the addict. So it's the part of us that is, we're so focused in the future and in daydreaming about what we'd love to have happen in this life, but we're not actually taking the action to do it. We're not actually going out there and making it happen. And God, that was me, and it serves a purpose. It served my purpose during high school to dissociate from all the pain of my life and just think about snowboarding and skateboarding and things I enjoyed. And in that, it was a survival technique. But now we really want to step deeper into life. We got to turn those dreams into actionable steps and start living in the present. And then the other side of it is the addict that is so held down by their vices, is distracted and out of alignment, getting pulled this way and that, away from the flow of the river that actually wants to take place in their life in integrity. And so that'll be, working with the fear on both ends of what is holding us back from being in our authentic expression, our unapologetic expression. So working with our control habits on how we show up and how we hold back our love and how we people please. And yeah, it's exciting. We're going to be diving into relationships as well, particular, and how we can show up more fully in those relationships, and how we can bring our fullness into them and create deeper intentions beyond is programmed in from, oh, get married, get a house, have kids. No.
Mm.
What is it like to live in a relationship of eros, of really cultivating a deeper love? And so yeah, those are the bullet points of what we'll be getting into. There'll be work on all the archetypes. There always is, as like you just said. Yeah, there used to be people who just did one thing. If you were a warrior, everything was done for you for the most part, other than you'd stand guard when there's no war, you'd train, and you'd go to war. You didn't have to make these big decisions. You didn't have to have a vision for the kingdom. People told you what to do. You just had to know how to do your one mission. And so there'll be work on all the things, on all the archetypes to a bit, tuning in, activating them, but we'll be really going deep into the lover archetype. So if that interests you, or you think a man that you know would be keen on that, please reach out. It is such an honor to create these retreats with you and with our other brothers, and because it is a co-creative experience, as every man who shows up as a participant is also showing up as a leader.
Really beautiful. Yeah, I'll have some links below if anyone wants to check those out. I'm really excited for this one. The lover is near and dear to my heart, especially the shadowy pieces. I was one prone to deep periods of fantasy in my life, as well as I've had a arduous journey with the addict, expressing itself in many ways, from sex to steroids to drugs, which were all habit pattern reactions and controls to avoid the one thing I was looking for, which was the love that I was looking to find everywhere else, but the one place where it was actually really, really begging me to turn within and see. And the land we go to there, as Vern said, it's in Saktine territory up the Inshucks, and it's somewhere I've been going for over 5 years and led over 10 retreats there. It's a very beautiful and sacred land. It's been cared deeply for many years. It has a lot of medicine in it, and the whole weekend has so much medicine, from the cadence, as what we're talking about in the beginning, to wrap it all around, a little bit of silliness and fun, and the deep work. And when you dance between those, there's a real art to going deep, because it allows for some playfulness, that balance of effort and ease, which creates balance in the weekend, and it creates a good container for people to drop in at various levels and to express themselves, find their authenticity. So these retreats have been really near and dear to my heart, and they've been something that I look forward to as we continue to grow them and see the work that men are doing. It really lifts me up, gives me so much hope for this life, so much hope. And this is maybe to answer my own question of why men's work is becoming so popular, and I do believe it is becoming more popular, is because, as we talked about in the episode, shamanic cultures use ritualized drama. Cultures around the world had a way of coming together in community that our society and culture in the West is developing and finding more and more ways to do that, to find healing, to empower individuals on their path of alignment and stepping into the people that they want to be as conscious and deliberate creators. And it's really an honor to work with you, Vern. You're someone that I look up to, and I'm inspired by the work that you're doing and how you hold yourself. And honestly, it just brings me so much joy to be able to do this work. So I look forward to it, and I'd love to hear what else you got going on to finish this piece off. What's going on in your beautiful life?
Love you, brother. Yeah, very excited for the retreat. Very excited for Enliven Wellness Festival coming this summer. If you honestly, it's funny. I used to say, if you live in BC, I'm like, nah, fuck that. If you live in Australia, like, people fly out for Shambhala. I would way rather go to Enliven than Shambhala. So fly out, come. It's 4 days. It's for everyone. It's a wellness retreat where, like the men's retreat, we do have the opportunity for deep work and a lot of workshops, a lot of indigenous wisdom is shared. It's also an epic party. Um,
Hey,
and yeah, a lot of beautiful art, a lot of beautiful music. And that will be the BC Long Weekend, August 2nd to 5th.
hey,
If you're in Vancouver, come through to Synergy Ecstatic Dance every other Tuesday. Would love to see you there. Great place to meet like-minded, embodied individuals. And it's a safe place, whether you've never danced in your life or whether you're professional. It's a place to dance where it's not performative, simply for yourself, for your own liberation. And yeah, if you're looking for, yeah, I invite you to follow me on socials and see if what I do resonates with you. If you're looking for coaching or counseling, I'm in the Vancouver area. And something I'm really excited for is the school community I'm going to be creating. I've been looking for a while of how I can really support creating men's work in a more accessible way, because I get that not everybody has the freedom to get out for 4 days, whether that's the time freedom, the financial freedom, living on this part of the world, to get out to these retreats. And we also need more frequent like check-ins for this work. It's not just doing this once, twice, three, even 4 times a year. It's about living this. And that's really what we try to teach at Expansive Man, is how to show up as an accountability partner, how to show up as a brother that's really supporting your other brothers in your life to be their best selves. So what we're doing is we're actually creating an online community that's going to have a lot of programs for you to be able to go through to start leveling up within yourself, within habits, within showing up for other men, within just deepening within masculinity. We're going to have weekly men's group calls that will be online, as well as some workshops on top of that. Where it's going to go from there, I'll keep on the hush hush, but that will be coming out within a month. So if you actually follow me on socials and send me your email, you will get all the info. Yeah, that's exciting to share. That's a new one that I can now fully share because it's in the calendar of when the things are happening. And that is partly why I have Timeable still on my SMART goals for myself.
hey, Bumpadios.
Hey,
Vern will most definitely be back. The bromance continues. Thank you all for listening. Blessings and good chi. I
ho ho.